TypeScript versus JSDoc JavaScript for static type checking. The reason why I wanted to read about this was that Rich Harris made the craziest tweet of my lifetime, where he said that Svelte migrated from TypeScript to JSDoc, and it was a better move. So I have to know. I gotta know. Hi, YouTube. All right, here we go. There's a debate to be had about whether using JavaScript or TypeScript leads to better outcomes when building a project. The advent of using JSDoc annotations to type a JavaScript codebase introduces a new dynamic to this discussion. Yeah. In this, in this guide, we'll investigate what it looks like and come to an opinionated conclusion. Okay, there we go. If you came to an unopinionated conclusion, I would hate it. I would hate that. If you talked to me in 2018, I would have solidly recommended using TypeScript and steering away from JavaScript. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I am on this train of you should... Oh, the music is a bit loud. My bad. You should use TypeScript. You should not use JavaScript. That's where I'm at right now. Let's see. The rationale is simple. I'm exceedingly convinced the value that static typing provides. Okay, it's not static. It's technically more like a runtime typing, at least typing. We'll just call it typing, okay? For your own sake, it's typing. In terms of productivity and avoiding bugs in production, I appreciate this can be a contentious issue. No, it's not a contentious issue. Only DHH, the guy who thinks no types is more bestest, thinks that this is a contentious issue. It's not contentious. Types are fantastic, but that is my settled opinion on the subject. Other opinions are available. Yes, other shitty opinions are available. Absolutely. You're 100% right. TypeScript has long had a good static typing story. No, it hasn't. Again, not quite correct on this one, okay? Like, a good try, because JavaScript is dynamically typed. Historically, it has not. Again, I think there's like this fundamental miss. TypeScript is not actually typing anything. TypeScript is simply just an abstraction on top of JavaScript. It has no indication into JavaScript other than features that used to be compiled to JavaScript or enums. But that's about it, right? Type hints would be a better term for this. It's not actually... It's a linter. A linter is also a really good way to put it. TypeScript is not, it doesn't provide, it's a linter. Thanks to TypeScript support for JSDoc, JavaScript can now be statically type checked. Sort of, right? Again, any is like the whole reason why you can't be. If you pluck something out of a string, like say you do some log plucking, right? And there's an enum within a log that's a part of a freeform string. When you pull it out of the string, you have to cast it as something. Now, your enum or your list of available options may actually be more limited than what's available, and you just don't know. And you don't have the language to describe that. And that's the problem. You know what I mean? That is the real problem. Now that you know, you're welcome. You're welcome. Nothing can replace Rust. Nothing can replace a language that requires typing, right? Even Golang, you know, this is just a fundamental feature, Java fundamental feature, right? JSDoc is a markup language used to annotate JavaScript source code files. Using comments containing JSDoc, programmers can add documentation describing the application's programming interface of the code they are creating. The TypeScript team has taken JSDoc support and run with it. You can use a variant of JSDoc annotations to provide type information in JavaScript files. What does this look like? All right, simple TypeScript. Here we go. String my string. Okay, so that's TypeScript. This is TypeScript statement should become the equivalent of this. Okay. Interesting. I didn't know you could type variables. I didn't know that. So that's kind of cool, right? Gross. It is gross in the sense that I don't like comments, but I also don't like transpiling. I want you to sit for a second, just for a second, okay? I just want you to sit for just 1 second. I want you to think about the fact that there has been hundreds, if not thousands of humans that have tried to make building and using JavaScript better with TypeScript. There has been tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of people just fighting bundling and building when it comes to TypeScript. So, is a comment system the worst thing in the world? It may not be the worst thing in the world since we don't have since the language itself doesn't support types. Okay, I'm just saying this is no less a lie than this is a lie. They're the same level of lying, right? It's more chars. Agreed with that. That's why I'm not hugely loving this, but I'm looking for an alternative. I'd be willing to give it a try, right? This is a type-enhanced JavaScript, which the TypeScript compiler can understand and type check. Type-enhanced? This is, okay. I have been programming, I have been in school or programming or thinking about programming for 20 years. This might be the first time I've ever used 2 words consecutively that is type enhanced. This is great. All right. Why use JSDoc JavaScript? Okay, yeah, I'm actually, this is what I want to know. Why would you use JSDoc JavaScript instead of TypeScript? Well, there's a range of possible use cases. Perhaps you're writing simple node scripts and you like a little type safety to avoid mistakes. Yes. So I would say let me refashion what they're saying really quickly. All right. So here's leftpadd's a recent repo I've made, and I have like a running script right here. Like, I want to be able to do some data processing, and I want to be able to just execute it. So there's a shebang involved. Well, unfortunately, with that shebang, it's just node running. So theoretically, what I could have done is I actually could have annotated that with like a little type. Look at that. I get these beautiful little things. So that's kind of nice, right? And then lengths, it actually does work. I'm actually getting a lot of the LSPing going on right there. It even has the proper typing and all that. So actually, that in some sense is pretty cool. You prefer type garnished? Yeah, type garnished could be pretty good too. So could I see myself liking this for little shebang scripts that I want to run? Perhaps. Perhaps I could find myself liking that. Right? Interesting. Okay, anyways. Or maybe you want to dip your project's toes in the water of static type checking, but without fully committing. JSDocs allow you to do for that. Let's see. Or your team may simply prefer not to have a compile step. So I feel like the second argument's a really big thing, and I am definitely much more thinking about this more and more. This is becoming an increasingly important thing I've been thinking about, which is that compiling or using a translation layer, no matter how convenient you think it might be, has a lot of pain in the ass problems. Right? It has a lot of pain in the ass problems that you run into. And anyone that's done anything that's more production-y will know that there does just come layers of annoyingness you have to deal with. So could I like this? Maybe. That, in fact, was the rationale of Webpack team. A little bit of history. Webpack has always been a JavaScript codebase. As the codebase grew and grew, there was often discussion about static typing. However, having compilation step wasn't desired. TypeScript has quietly added support for type checking JavaScript with assistance of JSDoc for some time. Initial support arrived with --check.js. Okay, nice. So this has been around for a while. A community member by the name of Mohsen Azimi. Hey. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. Started experimenting using this approach to type check the Webpack codebase. His PR ended up being the test case that helped improve the type checking of JavaScript by TypeScript. TypeScript 2.9 shipped with a whole host of JSDoc improvements as consequences of Webpack work. Oh, this is really cool. Look at this. That is actually super cool. Also, I'd say it's super cool of the TypeScript team to allow for a competing strategy like this, right? Because in some sense, that's a maintenance nightmare, right? I know 2.9 was ages ago. That's the best part. We're in 5.1 is beta right now. So this is actually a really cool thing for them to do because there's a lot of work when it comes to this. This also helps popularize the approach of using JSDoc to type check JavaScript code bases. It demonstrates that the approach could work on significantly large code bases. These days, JSDoc typing checking with TypeScript is extremely powerful. While not quite on par with TypeScript, not all TypeScript syntax is supported in JSDocs. That's good. I'm not convinced that a lot of TypeScript is good, right? I am not convinced. So one thing that I really hate about just TypeScript in general is that you end up writing 2 pieces of code. This is for library developers. So anyone that just develops applications, this will be a huge miss for you, and you won't understand why this is a pain in the ass. But if you develop libraries, what you'll find is that you write how your data should look, how it should transform, how it should be. You're going to be using a lot of generics, kind of really going through this extreme stuff just to get through it. And it's almost like you wrote business logic, but only in types. And then afterwards, you rewrite it again, but in actual business logic. And I really dislike that. It feels like I'm always maintaining 2 separate things, always. And it feels really, I don't know how to describe it other than I just really dislike it. Especially when it comes to like key leads to a specific type in a map or things like that, that can be really frustrating. Any sort of key discriminator where the discriminator is the key into an object or a key into, say, a map. It's annoying. It can be very, very annoying. I don't like inference. I've already talked a lot about why inference I think is bad in TypeScript. I can give you a quick one right here. One of the most important features of TypeScript is find references. The moment you lean into inference and you're not generating concrete types. Now, if you use Zod's infer that builds out that type and then you have that as a concrete type that you export, I'm totally for that. You are explicitly typing it. You're just using Zod as the medium. Totally cool with that. But if you cannot find the references of every object you use, instead you rely on inferred typing, you're going to start returning objects that people will partially type so that they can pass to other functions, and you effectively lose where does your function go. You have to find every place in which that function is called, every place in which it is retyped into some sort of new type, follow all those types to go where they're supposed to be. I think it just leads to more complicated programming and harder refactoring, ultimately in the end. But again, that is because I do library development. I do not do a lot of application development. I mean, I guess I do a lot of CLI application development, but mostly a huge amount of CLI application development ends up being library development with like a very thin layer of UI, and the UI is dramatically simple because it's CLI. You know what I mean? All right, today it's completely legitimate choice to build a JavaScript code base with all the benefits of static typing. Okay, why use TypeScript? If you're interested, let's see, if you're starting a project and want to make use of static typing, how do you choose between TypeScript or JavaScript with JSDocs? Well, unless you have a compelling need to avoid a compilation step, I personally believe TypeScript is a better choice for a number of reasons. Okay, let's hear why. What company do I work for? I work for Netflix, by the way. First, the tooling support for using TypeScript directly is better than that for JSDoc JavaScript. I'm curious about that. What does that mean by tooling support? I'd like to see some concrete examples. At the time of writing, things such as refactoring tools, etc., in your editor work more efficiently with TypeScript than JSDoc JavaScript. And what does he mean by refactoring? Because I'm pretty sure there's exceptionally few refactoring tools available in TypeScript in general. Secondly, like, do they mean rename across a project? If that's what you mean, I get that. That would be kind of a pain in the ass. Secondly, working with JSDoc is distinctly noisier. Yep, I can buy that as well. It requires far more keystrokes to achieve the same level. Yeah, but this is where snippets take over. Anyone that complains about keystrokes, if you're really bothered by something, create a snippet. Honestly, I don't do much for any snippets, but I could see myself using JSDocs as like a snippet, right? JST, enter, and boom, it's just like type, you're highlighted, boom, make it go. I don't really like, it makes it noisier to read. Now that, on the other hand, I fully am on board with, and I do not like the noisiness of reading, but noisiness of typing is kind of like I don't find that a compelling reason. Like, I think this looks cleaner than that. I find this much harder to reason about than this right here. You know what I mean? Exactly. Yeah, relearning how to visually filter out comments that are unimportant versus important would be very hard. I may be biased by my familiarity with TypeScript, but I find that TypeScript is easier to read and comprehend compared to JSDoc. This has always been my big thing, is I've always just found JSDoc harder. JavaScript alternative. The fact that JSDoc annotations live in comments rather than directly in syntax makes it harder to follow. I would agree with that. It certainly does not help that many VS Code themes present comments in very faint color. Yeah. My final reason for having TypeScript comes down to falling into the pit of success. You're cutting against the grain when it comes to static typing in JavaScript. You can have it, but you have to work a bit harder to ensure that you have statically typed code. I mean, that's a hard one. Again, the pit of success is kind of an interesting term. I know I kind of alluded to it earlier, but there's a lot of hard parts when working with JavaScript or with TypeScript. There's a lot of ancillary concerns you have to have. And so I'm not 100% convinced that it's simply easier. But I do think that this one right here, this is the best argument for it completely. TypeScript is easier to read than JSDoc. Agreed. Type 1 in the chat if you use VS Code. 1 in the chat if you use VS Code. Don't worry, I'll ask about NeoVim next. Type 1 in the chat if you use VS Code. Okay. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not the overwhelming amount of ones I was expecting. I actually figured this would be a lot of just blazingly fast number of ones. Mods, get them all. Got them. Hey, would you like to have a seat? Okay. So type 69 in the chat if you don't use VS Code. 69 in the chat if you don't use VS Code. You know, I'm actually a little bit surprised by that. I would say that the editor has greatly changed. Really. To me, it seems like we've greatly changed. Because I think if I would have asked that question 2 years ago, I think it would have been mostly ones and a few 69s. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, let's do a quick poll, because this is actually really interesting, because this is very much so different than I would have ever guessed. What editor? We'll go like this. We'll go Vim/NeoVim, right? /Vi, right? They're all there. Emacs, DoomMax, any of those variants. VS Code, IntelliJ, and then we'll go like other, which is going to be like Sublime, Helix, anything that kind of falls in the other category. Because I know there's quite a few of you that enjoy yourself the Helixers. Okay, Helix D's nuts. I know. Very, very impressive. I would actually be genuinely shocked if VS Code, Vim, Vi outweigh VS Code. Wow. I would not have guessed this. Honestly, this would not have existed a year ago. Hands down, I don't think this is just because my audience highly indexes probably into people who use Vim, but I would have expected this number to be half this VS Code, if not worse. Like, the fact that it's this close, that's pretty crazy. NetBeans would fall into other. Thanks for the content. My background is in 3D animation. What do you think about switching careers at 34? I think you're fine. Like, it's all about hunger, okay? It's all about hunger and your desire to learn and to be awesome at it. So this is actually, to me, this is super surprising. I would not, like, I've done this poll before, maybe 2 years ago, and it was like, for every one Vim, Vi, NeoVimmer, there was 10 VS Coders. Cool. All right, I want to do one more. Because that's just, I mean, to me, that completely blows my mind. To me, that completely blows my mind that can exist. New poll. Let's go like this. Do you use Vim motions? Let's see. What motions? What editing motions? Let's go like this. Mouse plus keyboard, right? Like your standard, option / control / shift, all that kind of crap. Vim motions, Helix / Kakwan. I don't know how to say those ones. Is there any other ones? Oh, yeah, there's Emacs. Emacs, right? There you go. There's people that use a mouse for editing. I don't know these things, okay? Kakwain. All right, so what is the breakdown of this? Because this is actually another compelling story to look at, which is our previous one had about 230 to 210 for VS Code to Vim by NeoVim. Now, the real question is how much does, look at this. Vim motions are everywhere. Imagine using a mouse. I know. Motions are painful. I know. I've seen it. This is actually super cool. I know that's why VS Code can be used without a mouse. I know. But there's like mouse and keyboard editing, meaning that you're just using your standard kind of VS Code ones. They're not designed for being really good with text editing. There's shortcuts. You can use VS Code without a mouse. I get that. But Vim is designed for editing text at a high speed. Helix, there's some things about Helix that I don't love. I did forget. I know, my bad. Anyways, okay, just a quick question. I was just curious about it. So it looks like even more people are in the Vim motion camp than I thought. Okay. You can grow to love Helix. Oh, Helix D's nuts. That's all I can say about that. Okay, so let's. Is there any more conclusion here? On the other hand, you're cutting with the grain when it comes to static typing and TypeScript. You have to work hard to opt out of static typing. The TypeScript defaults tend to toward static typing, while JavaScript tends away. I don't know if that's true. The problem with TypeScript is that you get the illusion of typing, which is also its benefit, right? Because, some of the hardest parts about developing with a static language is when you get into just the pure of generics and just like data coming in and string manipulation stuff and polling, there's like this whole sucky side. And that's where TypeScript's really easy, because you can just be like, as whatever the hell I want, right? And you can just go right in, you know what I mean? And so I think that is, it's not static typing, it's suggested typing. And it's I love this. Okay, so this was a good article. I think they made a really great point. I'd love to, I should try JSDoc one of these days. Like, really try it. Can I love JSDoc? Right? Like, what tools would I need to see, and how would I like to use it to see? Like, could I get used to seeing comments as being type information? Does this pattern actually go away from suckiness at some point, or is it annoying? Right? You tried it and you didn't like it? See, I haven't tried it. I'm very curious. I'm very curious, because it's a very important point that I think, a lot of people, they see something, they don't like it off the rip, and then so they discount it as being bad. Or they see something and it's a little bit hard to comprehend, and you discount it as being bad. And I can't say that is great. I know there's these proposals. Okay, I'll believe types when types get here. I'd love to see types. It's all bad? Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. One more question. Static versus dynamic, right? Static typing, dynamic typing. I'm curious, what do you guys prefer? Because this is like, in my head, so before I even look at the poll, I'm going to close my eyes. In my head, it should be like 95-5. In my head, that's what I think is going to happen. But I'm not necessarily blown away if it's not there. Okay, so 95-5 was a little overstated on accident. Oh, no, actually, that was pretty close. Okay, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe my guess is about right.